Jeffrey. I don't know, man. I mean, if we ever go live too early, if I ever click that button too early before, we're supposed to, and you and I are doing the conspiracy theory stuff.
Trouble.
Good God, it could be the end of What's the Right Shot. It could be the end of Jacqueline's 365. Guys, hope you're having a great day so far, wherever you are. It's Brent Abel here, WebTennis.com. Another episode of the What's the Right Shot? Completely spaced on who I was there for a second. Yeah. Anyway, number 418. What's that?
Fallout from the eclipse.
Yeah,
memory,
Yeah, no, it's
stared at the eclipse too
Let's
long.
not go there. Come on. Let's not go there because we could get way into it. Morning, Mark. Morning, Rich. Thanks for hanging out with us again, as you guys typically do every morning. Great to have you with us. Looks going to be a roasty, toasty one here today, Jeff. 88 is forecast.
Ooh,
Tomorrow, 95.
Ooh, that's a spike.
And then Thursday, 97. So it could be like some outstanding training weather. That's the way I look at it. Let's get out there. Let's really crack a great sweat called a gusher. And let's just test the old physique. Let's see just how fit we aren't.
Any leftover toxins? Let's just sweat them out.
Let's get them out of there. Let's get them out. All right, guys. Look, I got an interesting, I think. Let me get this thing back here. Here we go. Episode for us today. And we're going to look at the great Jannik Sinner, who arguably is the best player in the world right now at this moment.
Yep.
I suppose you could argue that, well, you could argue. But what would be the point in arguing? Let's just agree to disagree. Why can't we just all get along, Jeff? Do you want to answer that question or no? Probably not.
No, I've got way too many responses in my head that are circling.
Okay, all right.
Just not gonna go there.
All right. Here we go. And this is a clip. I've got a credit. I'm going to give at the end of the clip for us. But there's two things I want us to look at, and I'll be right up front. Clip is a little grainy, so it's not. But the two things I want to get into, Jeff, I think that we can clearly see what we need to do here. So we got Jannik Sinner on the far side, about to load up on a forehand here, and there's. Boom, there it goes. Nice angle cross court. So, Jeff, the two things I like about this forehand, I think anyone at any skill level can copy. Number one is, how do we prep for a forehand? And, now we see the left arm, non-racket arm, parallel to the baseline. And as you've always said, which I thought was just brilliant, that the extending the left arm out there really tells your brain, it gives you that measurement of spacing. Here's the spatial distance we want away from the path of that incoming ball.
Right.
So that when we make contact, we're not too close, we're not too far away. So number one, we can all do this. I think the other thing too is if you can see, it's really tough to see, but his racket, I don't think ever goes behind him, like literally behind his back. It stays out. Right. It stays out there. So he's got really both hands, the left arm obviously extended and the racket hand, but it's staying, I don't know how to describe it, other to his side. It's just not getting to a point where the swing now can't be forward, right? Where the swing is sort of a semicircle coming back into a direct.
Right.
So that would be thing one. Thing two is just think about, if you're going to go cross court, think about getting around the outside of the ball, getting around the right side corner. I know, how can a sphere have a corner? Well, it do in this case. Get around the outside and just let that be your contact point. Naturally, we can all do that. So those are two things right there, Jeff, that I think that we can all work on in practice, and just kind of habituate. right? To where number
So
one,
let's go back and see that the first forehand, if you would.
yeah. The first forehand. Okay.
Yeah, the first forehand where he just clears.
So the ball's played. So what you're saying is the ball's played right at him a
Right.
little bit.
No,
Not too
far-
much.
far-
Oh,
no,
wait.
no,
I got to go
farther.
further back.
Yeah, farther back. Very good. The first ball that Rublev hits at him.
Yeah. Okay. It's coming. It's coming. Here we go. Oh,
Oh, we went back
yikes.
again.
I went too far. Here we go. Okay.
Double back.
Yes. All right.
Okay, here we go.
Yeah.
So again, hands go up, arm comes across. He creates his spacing.
Yep.
And I'm looking, go slow. And you can see his hand, his right hand, never gets behind him.
Yeah.
So it's not like what you're saying is like the racket can have some lag, right? So the racket may actually disappear a hair depending on who's hitting the ball, but the hand never breaks the plane of the body, right? So what you're describing, Brenny, you know, on the other forehand is for any player, this is the way you kind of look at this theory: is go up to the net and stand with your belly touching the center strap, and then if you were going to hit a ball, if you're right-handed, you were going to hit a ball to the left into the fence, your stroke happens on the other side of the net. It doesn't happen on your side of the net whatsoever. It's just a way to understand the plane that we're talking about here.
Right.
So, and I've done this with players that have too big, and I'll make them go up, stand actually with their right hip on the net, left hip open, so they're facing the side court with their right hip touching. Now make a turn and coil up, and then I feed them a ball. I go, I need you to make your whole stroke on my side of the net that I'm feeding the ball from, right? So it's just a good way to understand that plane, and that if your arm is actually getting lost behind you, you are way too deep in, and there's just so much more stroke and swing path that has to be managed. By the time you get to the ball, it gets messy really fast.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah,
so
it just makes
I want to make that clarification.
No, that's good. It also creates a lot of inconsistency at contact, meaning that you can have great spacing. You could have, with your footwork, created great spatial distance away from the path of the ball. But if you've got your hand in, as Jeff said, your hand and plus your racket sort of hidden behind you, now what happens is when you come out to the ball, it's not a forward swing. It's a semicircle type of swing.
Right.
And the problem with that is that it naturally doesn't want to go forward. It wants to keep going
out.
Yeah. And so look, so that's thing one to copy. And then the other thing is super simple, is just get around the outside of the ball and let your swing path go slightly, well, definitely go forward and up. And you'll get that angle. And I kind of feel like on my forehand, Jeff, even if I'm trying to go right back up the middle, if I can get around the outside corner of the ball, it just seems like the racket head gets slightly, the tip of the racket head gets slightly ahead of everything.
Yeah.
As opposed to being completely flat against the back of the ball. And for me, I just find that I've just hit a much higher quality spin.
Yeah.
I get more natural swing speed. I get more natural power.
Right.
And so
I learned this in junior college under Rich Anderson, and his term for it was turn the corner on the ball, meaning you got to get around the outside of the ball.
Good.
That was the way he phrased it, was you got to turn the corner on it.
Love it.
And so everybody immediately kind of understood what he meant by it. And, anyway, that's when I first conceptually really understood, getting around the outside of the ball.
Good. Here's the credit, youtube.com/Australian Open. I don't know if there's a link down below in the description area, but if not, and you want to go on over, they've just got clip after clip after clip of some great stuff. But here's something else, Jeff, that I got from the great Daniel Coyle. in his book, The Talent Code,
Talent code.
which made an enormous difference to me in terms of how do we learn something. And this was sort of my first exposure to myelin, myelinating, grooving, if you will, the old school term, which is grooving it. But this is a book that if you haven't read it, you got to get it. You absolutely have to get it, and it's more than. I should say that there's a lot of tennis references in there. There's also references to music, to art, to other things, to soccer, other kinds of sports, in terms of how do we really get skilled at something.
Right.
And I'm just going to read the quote because the quote to me just kind of says it all, which is struggle is not optional. It's neurologically required. And this is assuming you want to get better at something, right? So let me just kind of let me preface this whole thing. If you're just out there happy with your game and you don't ever really care about putting any practice time, just want to go out and, in Jeff's word, get a tip here and there.
Don't get me started.
Okay, all right. Then this is really not for you. But if you're the kind of player like I am, I know Jeff is, and all of our students are, and I know a lot of you guys out there who are playing a lot, working on your game. This is critical. Struggle is not optional. It's neurologically required. In order to get your skill circuit to fire optimally, you must by definition fire the circuit suboptimally. You must make mistakes and pay attention to those mistakes. You must slowly teach your circuit. You must also keep firing that circuit, practicing in order to keep myelin functioning properly.
Right.
After all, myelin is living tissue. So my big takeaway from this, Jeff, is that when we're out there practicing, two things have to happen. Number one, we have to stretch ourselves a little bit. We have to get out of our comfy confines, whether that's, with the same guy every Thursday at 2:00 in the afternoon on court 3 at the BTC.
Right.
Okay. I'm not saying that you shouldn't.
Groundhog Day.
But, make sure that you're mixing it up. Make sure that you've got other players that you're practicing with that will stretch you in terms of skill level. Make sure that you're also playing at different venues, that you're, if you're a member of the Berkeley Tennis Club, okay, cool. But you also ought to once in a while be going down to San Pablo Park in West Berkeley and playing on courts that maybe haven't been resurfaced in decades.
Yeah.
Maybe haven't been cleaned in a month. And you need to put yourself in those different situations to stretch yourself. And the other takeaway I get from this, Jeff, is that there's no value in getting frustrated when we're practicing, because getting frustrated, getting angry, it just stops all of this myelination. And so if you're not cool with as it says here, you must by definition fire the circuit suboptimally, right? You have to make mistakes to be able to fine tune those mistakes, to be able to get better at it, and then continue to fire the circuit the way that is correct. And if you get pissed, if you get upset, if you let the world know what you know that you should have done on that last shot, it doesn't have any value in terms of this quote right here.
Yeah. I would add to this too that I forget the name of the book, and it was about optimal practicing, and it was written by a guy who was a juggler for Cirque du Soleil.
That's right.
And he was not. His parents were both acrobats and something else, like but he was not gifted like the way they were, right? And so he kind of found himself, struggling, and he ended up being a juggler, and he was, again, not gifted, and so it became a lifelong passion for his. He became a very high quality, master juggler for Cirque du Soleil. But in his journey, he kept notes and he kept asking questions about those that went out and just kind of naturally went on to the next skill quite easily, the ones who were, quote, gifted. And so he kind of, went after like, how are they doing it? What are they doing naturally that the rest of us are not? And part of it is adding a minor degree of complexity in pushing the new skill. So when we do pattern work, when I'm hand feeding pattern work, a 3-ball pattern, it helps tune in the very first ball, because I can't get to the second ball or the third ball without having done the first ball as optimally correct as I can. So then I recover, I prep, I have to use specific footwork to get around the second ball because it's in a different location. I hit that ball, I have to recover, I have to do this because now I'm going to a third ball in a different location and hitting that ball to a different target. So the progression of forcing yourself to have to do the 1, the 2, the 3 also helps with myelination, because you're driving the second skill can't get better unless the first skill was focused on and achieved. You follow that? Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so it's really cool. It was really, like, for me, it was like, it was one of the greatest, revelations for me looking at it, because it's something I've naturally kind of driven in my coaching. And to me, it was like a little bit of verification. Like, okay, you got to keep driving the new skills, or trying to master, like we talk about the drop shot all the time, right? Well, that doesn't happen by, I just magically have good feel. Some players do, but still, what's the sequence? When do I decide to use it? All the subtleties of being able to execute and have it be a legitimate part of your game that is useful. So anyway, hope that helps.
No, that's good. That's good. One of the great things in the book too is with learning a skill, and we've done this before, where we come up with constraint drills.
Yeah, absolutely.
And one of the things I thought was fascinating was, I think it was the Brazilian soccer academies. Maybe I've got the country wrong, but anyway, what they do with their kids, or their, I'm talking about not young kids, but I'm talking about juniors. I mean, kids who were like 16, 17, 18 years old who were really, really good.
Yeah.
And one of the practices they do is they have them learn how to dribble in a really confined space, indoors, in a room. And they've got a couple of defenders around them in this little tiny space. And they have to really get good at that. And once they start getting good at that, then they go out on the field. And the next thing you know is, oh, there's no one around me.
Right.
Even though there's 3 guys just, hanging on the guy, he's just a big deal. So, something we ought to do this week, Jeff, maybe tomorrow, let's come up with a constraint drill. I mean, a simple constraint drill could be that you go out there and you play some points, and you can only play a second serve. That's it.
Yeah.
That's all you've got. You have one serve to start the point. And look, there's 101 different constraint drills that you come up with off of just that one right there. So sometimes you need to get resourceful with coming up with drills on your own.
Right.
But
so in that vein, it's in Craig O'Shaughnessy's numbers, and this is like his original numbers when it came out. It was like from 2012 to 2016 or 2017, Rafa hit a forehand 80% of the time after his serve, right? That's not a mistake. That's not an accident. That's him calculating, where am I serving to make that possible, right? So in using the one serve constraint, the idea would be, a constraint would be, where do I need to serve to increase the opportunity for me to be able to get a forehand on my first ball after I serve? If assuming I'm not serving and balling, if I'm going to serve and stay back, where do I need to serve to give me the likelihood that I have enough time, or I just get the ball in my forehand so I can hit that forehand to their backhand? It's a great live ball drill, and it makes you really start to think about, where do I need to put my serve, and that my serve, maybe that needs a little work in terms of being able to hit a target, because you can instantly manipulate and have a say in what your opponent, to influence them to make a ball into a certain part of the court,
Yep.
just by sheer of where you're serving the ball. So the layers become really interesting when you start to narrow it down and force yourself to have to live in a tighter box. You know,
I'm going
and
to put the responsibility on you, Jeff, for tomorrow.
yeah.
Come up with a really good constraint drill.
Okay.
You have been duly notified. Speaking of practice, speaking of getting out of your comfort zone, what a segue. You know, what am I, advertising genius? I don't know.
That was smooth like butter.
Look, if you need a good practice T-shirt or 2 or 3, and you want to show a little love to WebTennis.com, here's one way to do it. Go over to WebTennisGear.com, pick up a shirt or 2, and yours truly will be grateful for that. Guys, time for us to get out there today. Look, if you loved today's episode, please click the like button on the video. If you're over at YouTube, of course, subscribe to the channel and click that notification bell so you're always alerted anytime I go live and or upload new content. Guys, thanks for hanging out. If you have a comment, another comment or question, right down below in the commentary, you can leave it there. I'd love to read those and respond. If you want to keep it private, we can do that as well, which would be right here. Brent at WebTennis.com or Jeff at Jackless365.com. Shoot us an email. We'll keep the conversation private with the back and forth and hopefully give you some clarity if you're stuck on something. Our job is to unstuck you. I think.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
What's the big mystery?
I don't know. Guys, let's get out there. Let's get out there. Help someone else have a spectacular day, guys. See you again next time.